Hey everybody, Jamie Starr here for the New World News Network. I am going to do a handful of videos today. Going to start doing more political commentary. I have been heavily focusing on my music. Tons of releases coming out. Things are really picking up traction, but I also considering, I have releases like my song Everybody which if you haven't seen the artwork for that, it is quite political. Um, and check it out right here, real quick. You can see a handful of your favorite right wing content creators up in there, whether it's Blair White, Michael Malice, Elijah Schaefer, Jack Buckby, and Martina, of course, so on and so forth. So, going to do more news stuff, going to reconnect with Paul, who I saw messaged me on my music channel the other day. For anyone interested in the music stuff, Jamie Star Music, you see the URL at the bottom here. Thumpermusic.us is my website. That's the sort of central hub for everything that goes out. Going to do some people ask me maybe a year ago or months ago at this rate to review a bunch of Nick Natoli videos. So I'm going to do that. But I got a handful of videos I'm going to do today. So the first one we are going to get into is, years ago, I did a video about the Blair White and Candace Owens debate on Dave Rubin's show. And a big point of contention of that was doxing. And actually, I sort of wish I didn't delete my old Twitter account because doing this video had Candace following me and now she blew up. Like, it's kind of funny the amount of these sort of right wing female figures who I have interactions with very early on, and then they just go on to, like Lauren Southern, I used to chit chat with on Twitter, and then next thing you know, she's banned from countries. And Candace Owens, I used to talk to on Twitter, and then she's off doing her thing. And my whole reason for deleting that Twitter account was basically like, I want to separate my music from politics. And now I realize that's impossible. And I have a whole other video going on about this that touches on what Matt Drudge talked about the ghettoizing of the internet, how everything's become toxic. Like, I see it in all of the sort of cultural things I enjoy, like pro wrestling, like what they call the IWC, the Internet Wrestling Community, is fucking toxic. I had no idea. I have a video on this I'm gonna do about how wrestling is like the most left leaning sport, which is crazy because it's all owned by like Republicans. So that's nuts. And then the other thing is even music. Like, I'd go into all these Discord servers of like artists I think my music sounds like, try to promote myself, and all I do is get chewed out. Like, there was one time I went into a music server and I tried seeing if anyone wanted to collaborate on a remix, and next thing you know, some fucking dweeb tried to chew me out on some, you're exploiting people for free labor, blah, 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 my communism, blah. And I'm like, dude, if you think musicians function with the primary motive of how much will I make out of this, you'd have no musicians. Like, what about I mean, that's like the craziest thing right there because everyone knows the sort of cliche of the starving artist. So, like, oh my God, if everything I did, like, I'm finally at the point where it's like I'm making like $20 in sales here and there, and it's wonderful. But I've been just churning away and ignoring that because it's like it's not going to make a difference in my life in general. So it's like I just need to keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. So this is going to be another avenue of me just trying to build that fan base. So please, if you enjoy my political content and you want to support me, support my music, I'm on all of the streaming platforms as Thumper. Look for the little rabbit head. Stream the music. That's all I ask. If you want to support, I have support links. There's PayPal links and all that. But just listen to the music and share it. That's all I really want. So anyway, this video, what we're talking about today, doxing, like I mentioned, my position on doxing is it's not a real thing, and I'm wondering where it came from. But can someone explain to me the origin of doxing? At what point did people collectively decide they're entitled to anonymity? Because what I'm going to show you here is Tim Pool, basically, for the sake of upholding the sin of doxing, is going to do the wildest mindfuck doublespeak doublethink, where we're just going to watch a little bit of this, and you're going to hear him constantly say, the publicly available private information, the publicly available private information, the publicly private, and I'm like watching this being like, how the fuck are you not getting this? That this is not real. That this is like an entitlement that you have, that you and other people have somehow come to the conclusion that you are entitled to. And then when it gets violated, you're suddenly like, well, oh my God. And it's like, dude, we had phone books. You are not entitled, because you are entitled, or because you have access to a Twitter account, doesn't mean you're entitled to anonymity. Where did and Ian even pressed him on him. And I was so glad, but Tim just kind of shut it down real quick, where Ian was just like, is it illegal? Because you can see the gears in Ian's brain are going, where he's trying to make sense of Tim saying publicly private, publicly private, publicly private. So let's watch the video.
We did the record search, and it is listed in public records as a private residence of this individual. So that's
it is listed in
public. They would like to explain.
Okay, so here, let me just, to his credit, let me just give this little bit of info. It is a private address, as in a private individual lives there. It's not a public place. For example, the Galleria Mall in Poughkeepsie, New York, where I used to work at, started this policy because of rowdy kids on the weekends, where Friday night and Saturday evening, you had to be 18 or older to get in. And when people would press me, oh, well, this is a public area, this is a public area, I would have to tell them, no, this building is privately owned. It is a private ownership open to public commerce. So the private owner can decide the rules. It's a private venue, but it's open to the public business. I know another guy, for example, 33rd degree Princeton Town Hall Freemason, who set up a gentleman's club that was a private residence, or not private residence, private establishment, where every member of this club had a key. You could not come into the place without the key. The only people who could get in could unlock the door. The cops wanted to talk to a guy who was in there, and the police had to wait for him to come out, because it was private. So when he's saying private here, he's not saying that the information is meant to be private, because as he's saying, public records. Private just means it's a person lives there, that the location is not open for the public to just walk into their house. So that's the little game being played with that. The idea that the information itself is private is a misconception that he's just perpetuating over and over by doing this little publicly available private, so we'll keep this going.
Feel free to. As it stands right now, we pulled public records. It's a private home address, and they published the address.
We pulled public information. Now, I will at least say that he goes into the code of conduct for these journalists and stuff like that, have all this do no harm stuff, and, essentially, like, what does doing that add to it? Listen, I'll give it to him. It's fucked up. I know the reason they're doing it, that it is a targeting thing. But I also, if you really go through the story, you kind of get the impression that the journalist, who's a piece of shit, I'm not even defending them, that the journalist probably did just think it was their business address, so didn't think much of it. It's the fact that this concept of doxing exists that has everyone up in arms and going nuts about it. Because suddenly, publishing public information is a sin.
Anyone else can do it, and anything that happens at this point is on the Washington Post for doing it.
I've got to point out
right now, we pulled public records. It's a private home address, and they published the address. Anyone else can do it, and
anyone else can do it. So this is again why I'm like, so where's the problem here? We found the records. Anyone else can find the records, but the Washington Post published the records. So that's the issue.
Anything that happens at this point is on the Washington Post for doing it.
I've got to point out some I guess nuance, because posting something and posting a link to something are different as a social media administrator. And if someone posts something illegal, they go to jail. If someone posts a link to it, they're allowed to.
Not true.
Well, it is as an admin. You remove the original piece, but you don't hammer everyone that retweeted it. That's insane if we live like that.
We're not talking about sharing a post. We're talking about them taking the link to the address and putting it in the article.
Was this not already public information?
So the name of
see right there, you see Tim being like, because like Ian said, very basic question: was this not public information? Have you not been saying public information over and over? Like, and this has been my whole point of contention since the whole idea of, Candace Owens' anti-bullying thing and, her being a doxer or whatever. Like,
so they put some pieces together.
So if no one knows the name of the person, then it doesn't matter what is public. If you then say, here's their name and here's a link to their address, you've doxed them, you've published your address. And I got to be honest, that is the nuclear bomb of doxing.
But
they're trying to argue.
That's the nuclear. Okay, so of made up problems, this is the nuclear bomb of made up problems. Like,
this is not doxing. When you post their name and then with a link next to it saying, here's.
And I'll just add this in just to get everyone else who disagrees with me more fired up about this. The fact that there is this term, doxing, shows though that this is a new creation. This isn't like murder or rape or, things that have been wrong and gone by the same thing since the start of time. When I'm genuinely asking, the origins of doxing are what? When did everyone collectively decide we have this entitlement, and that if this entitlement is violated, I have been wronged, basically? Like, I go back to phone books. I grew up with the phone book. I used to, if a friend I had from class didn't give me their phone number, I could just look it up and call them, and no one would think it was fucking crazy because they knew their number was listed in the phone book.
Their home address, you've doxed them.
Is that illegal?
No.
Is that illegal? No. So what the fuck is going on here? Why is everyone's panties in a bunch? No law was broken. You just pointed something that's publicly available.
Of doxing.
But
they're trying to argue this is not doxing. When you
I wouldn't even argue whether it's doxing or not. I would just say, what is doxing? This is not real. This is not real. Like, doxing is a word you've made up. Period.
And here's a link to their address. You've doxed them. You've published your address. And I got to be honest, that is the nuclear bomb of doxing.
But
they're trying to argue this is not doxing. When you post their name and then with a link next to it saying, here's their home address, you've doxed them.
Is that illegal?
No.
No, maybe it should be in the 21st century.
Free speech.
Yeah. Oh, so there's, what are you going to do there when we have to uphold free speech above all, and then you suddenly want public info to be super private? Like, am I the only one seeing the mind fuckery going on here? Like this doublespeak of, well, it's not illegal. I'm outraged they did it though. How dare they? I mean, yeah, I've easily pulled up the public records and I can confirm it, but I won't show it even though it's public, but I can confirm it. I mean, this whole fucking 15 minutes of the show, I'm watching this and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, what is this?
The
Unethical.
thing that I think we do need to add though is
I
that
mean,
the
let's just see
Washington
if there's
Post is
anything.
not the one that did all this work, and Taylor Lorenz is certainly not the one who did all this work. She's piggybacking off of work that was done by pro Antifa accounts over the weekend.
Okay, yeah. So pro ain't so. All right, that's basically it on this front. But I mean, like, doublespeak, doublethink all the way through. I wasn't going to show the whole 15 minutes, but trust me, there's a good 10 minutes of it where they do their usual intro, and then it's just this. Our newsroom had some ethical fucking conundrums that we were in because the Washington Post published it, but it's a private address but publicly available, and the Washington Post published the publicly available, but were we going to publish the publicly available because it's a private address? And it's like, what? Like, you were twisting yourselves in pretzels over this concept that I don't even know where it came from. And again, here's the problem with it that I guess really bothers me. Is, to me, we talk about, or I mean, I guess it's sort of old cliches at this point, but people talk about the snowflake generation. And people being so sensitive, and people being, not strong, and they just crumble, and all of that. Let me tell you, if you have an issue with your publicly available information being made public, that is like snowflake beyond snowflake. Because you've, like these social justice warriors, convinced yourself that you have certain entitlements for whatever reason. With them, they're entitled to whatever because their gender or their race or whatever. But you've just decided because, I don't know, because your Twitter handle isn't your government name, that you're then entitled to levels of privacy that nobody in history has ever had. Like, I mean, and here's the other part about it is, you can't. All right. So after this part of the show, Tim then goes on to this whole bit about how he can't get leftist on the show because, they think they'll be overwhelmed by facts and will be misinformed. But then he also says, I don't do Zoom because I think the internet makes people hate each other and it's better to be in person. And, he talks about essentially the dehumanizing factor of online and everything else. And to me, you can't, in the same list of like priorities and how you want the world to work, you can't be online and expecting people to have more respect for everyone's basic humanity and then be upholding this concept of doxing as if it's some ultra sin that people be shown as humans, essentially. Like, there's a way to look at this. And again, I don't want libs of TikTok to be put in any danger. I don't want any harm coming to them. I'm talking strictly on a philosophical sort of level about this whole doxing concept. But you can't be upset that there's a dehumanizing factor about the internet and people don't respect each other's humanity. But then when someone's humanity and personal side and who they really are is exposed, that's then doxing. You know what I mean? Like, you can't have it both ways. And that's all I'm seeing going on here is this both ways of, well, yeah, it's all public info and you can get it pretty easy, but it shouldn't ever be made public. Like, and then it's also, well, the internet's dehumanizing and it's making everyone hate everyone. And, people aren't treating each other like people, but people should also have complete anonymity. But you should respect the anonymous Twitter bots? Like, I don't see the world that they're laying out for me here. Like, I just don't see it. So that's my video on this little conundrum here. Like I said, there's going to be a handful. I'm going to just knock them right out now. So if you like the channel, subscribe. Again, please check out the music, and have a good one, everyone.